I mean, Marlon Brando was an extraordinary person to work with, but it was magical. It wasn't, you didn't talk acting stuff with him. He'd come in and go, and that meant, where is the shot? And I would work with him through props. I would put little salami out, or I would take a cat and just but not words. I would never talk about acting stuff. He would hate it if I talked about, kind of acting talk. But I always worked with props and, kind of offered him things that might help him in his, but he was a man of incredible intelligence, aside from acting, just as a human being, what he was interested in, what he talked about, what he observed. He was pretty remarkable. The studio didn't want Brando. And no, I was told by the president of Paramount Pictures, Francis, Marlon Brando will not appear in this movie, and I forbid you, as president of Paramount, to bring his name up again. And at which time I fell on the floor in a faint, and I I did it deliberately, and they said, what? I said, well, if I can't even talk about it, then what kind of director am I? He said, okay, you can talk about it. And then they said to me, finally, okay, we give you 3 conditions for Brando. 1, he does the film for free. 2, he does a screen test. And 3, he puts up $1 million bond, so if any misbehaving on the set happens, he is underwritten. I said, I accept. So that's what I had. I had that he had to do it for nothing. He had to do a screen test. How was I going to get Marlon Brando to do a screen test? And he had to put up a bond. So I talked to Brando. I didn't know Brando, but I think he was pretty down and out. He had been in a film called Queimada, Burn, by Pontecorvo, who made the great Battle of Algiers. And he was so not in favor that they really thought that if he were in the movie, it would be worse than if an unknown were in the movie. So with Brando, I talked to him knowing he was an actor. I said, you're playing an Italian. Maybe you would like to fool around a little and improvise some things to see if you could get the essence of an Italian. He was only 47 years old, and the character Godfather is in his 60s. So he, on the phone, I think he said yes, he would do that. And I made a date with him to go to his house and shoot a little, and do a little improvisation. So I got there very early with 2 or 3 of my friends from San Francisco, and they were like ninjas. I said, Marlon Brando does not like loud noise. I had heard that. He wears even earplugs. And so I want no one to make noise. We're going to go there and we'll do hand signals like ninja, set up the camera, and be ready for him. So we went to his house there on Mulholland Drive, and it was early. He wasn't up. The maid was there with this beautiful little baby, about 1 or 2 years old, I remember. And we set up our cameras, and I had in those days, little Sony Handycam that I had with me that was new at the time. And sure enough, there's a rumble, and he's going to come, and the door opens, and out walks this beautiful man with long blonde hair and a Japanese robe, and I'm shooting him, and I say good morning, and he was as sharp as a tack. He knew everything. He looked around, he saw the ninjas, and he knew I was filming him. This was, quote, the screen test. But I had brought some Sazic and some Provolone and some Toscano cigars, and I had put these props around. And he came out and he looked at all this, and he figured out what was going on. And he took his hair and he did his hair up. He had very long blonde hair, and he did it up in a kind of thing himself in the back. And he took shoe polish and he made it black, and then he put on a shirt, and I remember him saying, those guys, the lapel has always got a crooked part, And he did that. He made the lapel, and he started to do that. And then he said, he was shot in the throat. In the book, he was shot in the throat. So he talks like that, maybe. And I said, yeah, I'm filming. And then he said, he should look like a bulldog. And he took some Kleenex, and he put the Kleenex, like that. And then he started, acting, but not saying anything. And it was in his house. And I'm shooting, and we're all shooting, and he starts going, and the phone rings. His phone rings over here. I don't know who is calling, but he goes, So, at any rate, it was a miraculous transformation. It was the birth of that character. So I figured I was going to play my cards. I wasn't going to show it to the president of Paramount Pictures. I went to New York with the videotape, and I went to the office of Gulf and Western. Charlie Bluthorn was the head of the company, and he was the big boss. And I knocked on his office. I had set up a tape recorder in the conference room near his office, and I said to him, does Mr. Bluthorn have 5 minutes that I could show him something? And he knew me. I mean, Charlie Bluthorn, it was Church of England, but he had a Viennese accent, and he talked like, Francis, what are you doing, you crazy Francis? So he sees me, and he says, oh, what is it? I said, Charlie, could I just show you something? And he comes out, and he looks, I turn on the video thing, and there is this guy with blonde hair, and Charlie Bluthorn said, no, absolutely, that's incredible. And when he said that's incredible, and it was incredible, I knew that if Charlie Bluthorn okayed it, then it would okay, and that's how he got the part. They forgot about the $1 million bond, but they didn't hardly pay him anything. They paid him like $120,000. And the big thing with Brando, Brando was hired for 3 weeks, $1 million a week, and he showed up, as you know, allegedly very, very big, so I didn't know how to costume him. I said, well, they don't make Green Beret uniforms in size XXXXX. So how am I going to dress him? And then he wanted to talk, and he's such a genius. He's talking about termites and so on. And meanwhile, I'm thinking, my God, I have 3 weeks, 5-day weeks with him, and his contract was at 5 o'clock he left. And I know what he's doing, the son of a gun. He's going to stall the whole 3 weeks. I'm going to have to pay him another 3 weeks. So finally, I said to him, I think we ought to do Kurtz like it is in the book. In fact, he didn't want the character to be called Kurtz. He wanted it to have a lovely name like Laley. So in the movie, it's all Laley, and we had to dub him into Kurtz because everyone was Laley, because he thought it was Laley. It's like, blah, blah. At any rate, I said to him, Marlon, what if we just do it like Kurtz? And Kurtz is described as having almost a skull-like head, bald and stuff. And he said, no, it wouldn't work. So I said, yeah, okay. So then on the Friday, which was a week of no shooting, on the Friday morning, he shows up and his head is bald. And I said, Marlon, I thought you said it wouldn't work. He said, I lied when I said I read the book. I had never read the book. I read it last night.